Welcome, everyone, to the Entertainment Buffet podcast. I'm back. I'm your host, Brandon Prosek. So, this episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to be completely real and vulnerable. Not that I'm usually fake, but I just want to clarify some things. I want to talk about a lot of life updates and updates on the podcast. So you know I know that some of you maybe just listen to an episode here or there. Some of you maybe just listen because certain guests, or maybe I don't know, maybe you listen to every episode. Who knows? Either way, I appreciate anyone who has listened to the Entertainment Buffet podcast. I started this podcast February of 2016, which is crazy to think that it's been 6 years of the podcast. It's gone through many iterations. You may notice on the feed that there are some episodes missing. I've been wanting to put something to kind of explain that. So when the podcast first started, I originally approached, voice actress and actress Kelly Baskin. She at the time lived in Chicago here with me, and we did a handful of episodes together before she moved to LA. We thought we could make the remote thing work, but things took off, and Kelly's doing great. Kelly and I are on good terms. She's kicking ass. She's a voice actress in video games, commercials. Go check out Kelly Baskin anywhere you can. And then after that, I kind of was trying to find my footing with the podcast as far as like, did I want a full time co-host? Did I want to just have an excuse to talk with all my different fun friends, whether those were comedians, filmmakers, actors, performers of any way? And I enjoyed that. There are many episodes I have on there with friends of all realms and backgrounds that you could find there. There are also some episodes missing. I had another co-host named Elena Stroud. We worked together for must have been like 10, 15 so episodes before she decided to part ways with the podcast. And yeah, I was kind of in another like influx trying to figure out what I wanted to do again. It's kind of like this show has just been like almost rebooted in various ways, and that's where around episode must have been 37, I believe it was, where I did an episode with Jessica Quaz, and we had a lot of fun. We had a history of a friendship, and immediately asked her to be my co-host because it just made sense. And even though we were long distance in two different states, we felt like it was a perfect excuse to do that together. And so that was, I believe, summer of 2017, all the way up until the end of 2021, where Jessica decided to step away from the podcast as well to focus on some other things. And that's where I kind of leave myself with this show at a bit of a crossroads. I have obviously done some episodes with some various guests. Some people have asked me if I'm going to bring on another full-time co-host, and I would love that. But like, here's the thing, guys. Running a podcast, for those who haven't, it's a lot of work. Because sure, you can just talk to someone for an hour. That sounds like fun. But you also have to edit the podcast, and then you have to post it in various ways. You want to get it out there, and if you want to try to do various marketing for it too, that's always on the table as well. And yeah, it is a lot of work. So whenever I had a co-host, Jessica was good enough to where we could kind of split the editing responsibilities, and that helped kind of lighten the load with all the other projects that I juggle. But that's where it kind of leads me to big life updates. The last month or so, why I haven't been able to post an episode in over a month now. So I'm recording this on March 25th, 2022. On February 23rd, 2022, I closed on a house. Yeah, I bought a house. I'm in Forest Park, Illinois, and first time ever owning. I've rented ever since, you know, uh, ever since I lived on my own. I've always rented apartments, whether it was with roommates or significant others or on my own. And so I finally am a homeowner. And if you're watching the YouTube version, I am in my newly painted office, the room I'm using as my office. And yeah, I'm excited for all the different things I'm going to be doing to this house. If you follow me on social media, whether that's Instagram or Facebook, you'll be able to see kind of before and afters. It's a like 100-year-old house. It's very old, very outdated in many ways, style wise. So I'm trying to make it more. I don't know if I'm going to say more modern, but just more along the lines of someone who's 30 wanting to live there. And like this office, I permanently work from home with my job, my day job, so I'm very fortunate of that. But I needed to brighten this room up because it looked like a log cabin. You can see that before and after on my Instagram at Brandon Prosek. But yeah, so for the last month, it has been honestly, guys. I've been burning the candle at both ends because if I wasn't working my day job, I was packing from my apartment, or I was moving things that I had packed. Luckily, I'm only moving like a mile away, but it's still all the trips down the elevator to into the house and trying to put stuff, sort of away. But yeah, it's also I've been trying to do things like redecorate this office. I've been trying to paint stuff in my kitchen and even demoed some things and rearranged some things. So it's been great and a learning experience, but also I just have had almost zero free time. And when I do, I just have not had time to schedule podcasts. I've not had time to, even if I did schedule a podcast, not had time to edit a podcast if I had. It's exciting. It's good news. It's not like sad news, but I just, for my own mental health sake, I just had to kind of put some stuff on the side. It's also why I have not been performing as much stand-up comedy. I've not been just in general putting much content on YouTube because I've been busy with this house stuff. So when I have had free time, it's like maybe I'm trying to read a little, maybe I'm just throwing on Rocket League on PlayStation 4 or just sleeping. But I'm also trying to, still work out, trying to still be healthy. And so it's just a lot, guys. And it's just made me wonder with all my various projects whether this podcast still makes sense. I've done 105 episodes over the course of 6 years. I always wanted to do more, but whether I had co-hosts or whatever, life always got in the way, and that's why I never really had like a frequent schedule. Some people post podcasts weekly or they do bi-weekly, and that's awesome for them, but that just, to me, I was like, that just feels like so much more pressure. And as someone who juggles many different projects and activities, like that never seemed feasible unless I was able to set up something where someone else could help me with the editing, or perhaps we could do a bunch in a row and kind of block out for a while. But it's never quite been the case. So I'm not necessarily announcing that the podcast is for sure done or anything like that, because there are still people I'd like to talk to, and like this is always a great place for me to share with an audience other people's experience. Like I love just recently having on the last episode with Maddie Weiner. She's part of the JFL New Faces in 2021, or just to talk about Saga with Sandy Lee. I've always loved, that's why I've not really wanted to focus on very specific things and be able to just branch out and talk about whether it was comedy, comic books, film, television, whatever it may be, web content. I've just wanted to talk about entertainment in various ways with various people because I'm fortunate. I know and can connected with a lot of hilarious people, a lot of very talented, intelligent, people that I believe, you know, whether it's through you checking out their own content or on here, I'd love for you to enjoy listening to them. Um, yeah, so I can't necessarily say that the podcast is done, but I think just right now, life is still crazy. I mean, I still am days away from doing the final truckload of moving just stuff from the apartment to the house. And then that obviously is a process. I'm sure everyone knows how stressful a move is. You know, but then I'll just be done with the apartment, but then the house is still a mess. You know, I've been like, you know, my been fortunate. I've had some family helping me, you know, paint kitchen cabinets. My one bedroom is just a bunch of kitchen cabinets spread out, painted, drying. Another room is just boxes. The basement is a mess because I got a little demo happy and started demoing some paneling. And yeah, the kitchen is a little bit of a mess because I have stuff in the cabinets, but there's no doors, there's no drawers, so it's just all out. And yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I wanted to give people some updates because, you know, with Entertainment Buffet, there are so many things I want to do, and it's very, very difficult to juggle time for all of them. Like I said, if it is me just doing it on my own. So if you've listened this far into my rant and my update, please email entertainmentbuffet@gmail.com. Facebook, go on the Entertainment Buffet Facebook or Instagram, or go on my Twitter, Brandon Prosek, or my Instagram, anywhere. Go some form of social media and either leave a comment, email me, whatever, and tell me that like you still want this podcast to keep going. You know, because I've never done it for like the listens or the views, or like, you know, I never thought that this was going to turn into a form of income or anything like that. Like, I think a lot of people think like, oh, we'll get sponsorships and then we'll be famous. And it's like, no, I don't think that's ever been the case. For me, it was just always a fun thing to do. But I hoped that people did listen. And if they did listen, I hope they enjoyed it. And so my question is like out to all of you guys, like, can you respond to me in some fashion that you still want this to keep going? Like, are you subscribed? And if you are subscribed, are you listening to episodes? Have you listened this far? It's a real call to action. You know, it's a call to action, because, you know, I'll just be completely truthful and vulnerable. When Jess stepped away, you know, between episodes 99 and 100, we had, you know, almost a 6-month break because was trying to see if we can do that one together. And she decided to, you know, focus on some other projects and some other things. And the numbers have been lower. You know, I do see the analytics on Anchor. I host on Anchor now. And the numbers have been lower. So I don't know if that's because of some of the listeners being, you know, fans of Jess, friends of Jess, or family of Jess, or maybe because we had such a big hiatus, you thought the podcast was already over. I don't know. Or maybe the new episodes that I've done, you're not exactly interested in the topics. Which makes me wonder, like, okay, if you aren't interested in those topics, please, this is a call to action for you to tell me what kind of things you did prefer when you did listen. Did you really prefer the movie episodes, the TV episodes, the top 10s? Did you prefer, you know, oh, we watched these movies, or we watched this franchise from start to finish? Like, what? Because we jumped all over the place, and that's what I always liked, is because like I knew if we picked a certain kind of thing, we would, you know, it would maybe feel stagnant and boring. So yeah, it's a call to action, guys. Do you still want this podcast to go? If you do, what do you want to hear? What do you want to see? You know, if maybe you check out the YouTube for the video podcast. Because here's the thing. Entertainment Buffet, you know, the production company, has lots of things, you know, going on its own. You know, we still do have partnerships with various creators who give us their content to put it on the channel. We do also, we're still in the process of fully revamping and bringing back Brews and Bad Movies. We've done a few episodes after we took a long hiatus with the, you know, the pandemic and such. And so that's one thing, one monthly live show. Also, comic books are coming out. I have the one-off comic, the Trippy Time-Traveling Tale of Tripping, and also the first issue of Gold Slingers are hopefully going to be coming out sometime in the spring or summer of 2022, which, self-publishing for the first time is really going to be interesting. And yeah, there are a lot of avenues that Entertainment Buffet can go or has gone, and the podcast route has always been fun, but there's just only so much time in the day. Believe me, if someone wanted to pay me a livable wage to just, work with folks to give you various forms of entertaining content on Entertainment Buffet, whether that's the podcast, the YouTube, live shows, plays, or comic books, I would give you so much content if I didn't have to work a day job, if I didn't also have to be healthy and take care of myself. It's something that I've struggled with. I've been thinking a lot about this last month. Is like, does it make sense that we've crossed 6 years, that the podcast should just hang up its boots. It should walk off into the sunset. I don't know. It's hard for me to say. One other thing is I did try to do the mini episodes so that there were, some form of content coming out in between the longer episodes. And, those numbers were lower too. So clearly you guys were not a fan of just me talking, which is fine. I get it. I am not a huge fan of just me talking either. That's why it takes me a long time to edit the episodes, is because I have to listen to a lot of me and the other person. And so I get it. But yeah, I really just want to do a call to action, because it's going to be a real eye-opener indicator that it's like, okay, is it just a couple friends that are listening? Are there some random folks out there that just listen to this podcast, that they're a fan and they're like, hey, what the fuck? Where's it been? Why don't you guys do it that much anymore? Where'd Jess go? All that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just, there's a lot going on in my life right now. And also in the next week or so, actually 2 weeks from today, I'm going to be having surgery to have my gallbladder removed. So I'll be laid up for like a week or so, and however long that's going to be for recouping after the surgery. And yeah, it'll also start to get warmer out. So when it's warmer out, I'm going to want to be outside, and it's a little harder to podcast. So I'm not done with the podcast. I don't know if I ever like the idea of fully shutting the door on it, but I guess it just makes me wonder who's out there that really wants it. If you do really want it, what do you want to hear or see? Because I'd like to do that for you. I'd like to, you listen and clearly have enjoyed it in some fashion. Great. But, people ask me, why don't you just find a new co-host, or why don't you just pay someone to edit it? It's like, all right, well, that takes money. Why don't I find a new co-host? Well, I've done that a few times now, and it's difficult for multiple reasons. It's someone that we need to hopefully click in some fashion, someone that we hopefully have schedules that can align, whether, it can be someone remote and we're in other states, that's workable, but also someone that understands that it's a commitment. If they, for example, take on half the editing duties, this is something that's like, all right, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it. Because I've not been a fan of, I've been disappointed in the frequency of the output. But then again, looking at various analytics, it isn't exactly like, oh, when we do output more frequently, you guys listen more. So again, it could be you just like certain kinds of episodes, certain types of topics, and that's fine. But I would love to know what those are so that I can do more of those, because as you can tell, broaching the 20-minute mark of me talking this whole time, I have no problem talking. I would love to be with someone else who loves talking too, and we can just hopefully crack each other up and enjoy discussions. But it just really depends on what you guys want to hear or see. And so this is a call to action. If you've listened to the podcast, let me know what you would like, and I would be happy to do that. If this is sort of like a wrap up and eventually the ending of the podcast, thank you to anyone who's listened over time. We were, nominated for Best Movie TV Podcast Once Upon a Time. That was awesome. Yeah, and so I just want to thank folks who have listened. I want to thank all my, must be dozens and dozens of guests I've had over the years. And, just it's been a big learning process also with this podcast, trying various things and going through various changes and such. So, I mean, you guys saw me. It's weird to think about. I was 24, I believe, 23, 24 when I started this podcast. I was married and I thought I had everything kind of figured out. I went through some dark times and, some highs and some lows. But now I really feel like, despite a lot of things that I'm not a fan of, with the pandemic and, trying to sort some things in my life, I feel like I'm in a pretty good place. I'm excited about things to come. And yeah, it kind of depends. I don't want to say like, is this podcast worth it? But if no one's really listening or no one necessarily cares enough to answer this call to action, then it's hard for me to just do it just for fun when there's just only so much time in the day. Because if there are other projects that you guys are more receptive to, I would rather dedicate more time to that. So, yeah, call to action, guys. And if you don't answer the call, that's okay. I enjoyed it nonetheless, but I would like to, like I said, I'm not doing it because I want a bunch of fans and I'm doing it for the fans, but it's like, I just want to know, is this worth the time and effort that I put into it? Because it is a lot of time and effort. And there's just so many fucking podcasts out there. There's just so fucking many. And then so many fucking YouTube channels, so many people like me with their headphones and their mic in front of them and they're chatting. So I know this podcast is not wildly original. I know it's not like the most exciting thing in the world, but I've appreciated it. I hope some of you have appreciated it. And if you would like more, tell me. And tell me what more you would like. But for now, at least for the foreseeable future, this is going to be me just letting you know I'm going to be busy for a little bit, and it may not be a little while for an update. And if there's not an update for a while, it's because no one listened to the call to action. But I don't know. Maybe, this is March 25th when I'm recording this. Maybe you're listening to this a month from now because you finally got through your queue, and you're like, oh no, why hasn't there been a new episode? It's like, all right, well, this call to action, it can happen at any time. It could happen 2 days from now. It could happen 2 months from now. Either way, let me know. Reach out to me at Brandon Prosek, Prosek, or Entertainment Buffet on Facebook, on Instagram, any of those social medias, or entertainmentbuffet@gmail.com. If you email and say something, that'd be, it's a lot we really appreciate it. I know that podcasts are a listening thing and you may be doing something, whether that's working out or driving, and you're like, I can't really do that right now. But yeah, I mean, take a second when you do have a moment and answer this call to action if it really means something to you. If it's not worth the effort, then maybe it's not necessarily worth the effort of me doing this. And like I said, I'm not coming at this from like a bitter, like, my listens are down. Like, that's fine. There was a lot of episodes where my listens were not that high, and things were better at some points. We had a lot of ups and downs with our listenership, and that's understandable. There's a lot of content out there. TikTok, you can watch a shit ton of stuff for 10 seconds at a time for 10 hours, and so it's not coming from a bitter place. It's just, yeah, a lot of projects I juggle, and if it's something that you guys don't enjoy, then I would enjoy focusing on something that hopefully you guys will enjoy. So this has been, kind of an update call to action for the Entertainment Buffet podcast. Either way, I appreciate you, and wherever you are out there, be safe and have a good one.